Welcome in to Post Game Live on channel BSR. We're here on the 1st of July, 2014, after the Orioles dismantled the Texas Rangers. I'm Jake English from Bird's Eye View, joined with Josh Sroka of the Section 336 broadcast, and another special guest.
Yeah, the baby Camden's here for as long as she stays asleep. So
All right, we will take it.
She was able to make it through the end of the game a little bit, so hopefully she'll sleep through this. We'll see.
Well, she makes it up later than my wife and Scott Magnus, so she's off to a good start.
All right.
All right, so we are going to talk about tonight's game. Tonight's game is actually pretty good. Josh, before we got started here, we were just talking about how it was an exciting game because so much happened, but because so many things went right, it's almost like it's going to be a boring story to tell.
Right. Remember how we really struggled this weekend against the Rays, and we said, great, the Rangers are going to just have a field day with the Orioles this week? It's not really going that way.
Yeah, and it's also funny because we keep saying, gosh, I wish we would just have a laugh, or gosh, I just wish we would have a laugher, and here we are. The Orioles are really finally starting to throw some runs together, and I think this is the third game in a row in which they've had 7 or more runs. Unfortunately, they only won 2 of those 3.
Yeah, well, that's the difference. We're finally getting a few of these games together where the pitching and the bats are showing up on the same night, and that's what we've expected all year. This is the team we need.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's take a look at the box score. It was an 8-3 victory. The Orioles scored early, and then tacked on a bunch of runs there in the 4th inning. There were a lot of people in the hit column. The only people who came up with offers were Chris Davis, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and Ryan Flaherty, and also David Lowe, who did not get an at-bat. On the pitching side, which is again something that we'll talk about, the game was started by T.J. McFarland, who got the win on 5 innings pitched, giving up 2 earned runs and spreading 7 hits. Before we dive into all that, why don't we look at what your highlight from the game was, Josh?
All right. My highlight is that our bullpen staff is doing so well, and they're doing so well that I kind of feel like since the starting pitching did okay yesterday, we needed to use bullpen guys today, so we didn't even start a starting pitcher today. We just let the bullpen handle the whole game, and I'm okay with that as long as we don't need them tomorrow.
Right. The highlight of the game for me was Steve Pearce continuing to stay hot. It's been a Cinderella story. Everybody's great to see it. He's a really easy guy to root for. But beyond all that, the Orioles need their fringe guys, their supporting cast to be strong. And if you don't have to depend on guys named Davis and Cruz and Jones every night of the week, it only means good things for the Orioles.
No, the fact that Pearce is one of the hottest bats in Major League Baseball right now is making things very interesting. And I don't think anyone really picked Steve Pearce as a big key contributor at the beginning of the year, and who knows how that's going to project for the next half of the season.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't even sure he was going to stay with the club. I mean, Steve
well, he
Pearce
didn't.
is right.
He's gone.
Right. That's true, and that's especially interesting the way the Orioles have handled Nolan Reimold. In years past, they probably would have DFA'd Steve Pearce to make room for Nolan Reimold for 2 weeks until he got hurt again. But Pearce has not only made himself useful, I would say he's made himself, vital to the success of this club right now.
Right. Who was Steve Pearce DFA'd for? Do you remember?
I don't remember. What are you talking about? This season or in previous seasons?
This season, we did DFA him.
Was it Weeks?
I don't know. I don't know who it was, but I'm guessing whoever it was is no longer on the team.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely not. Sorry, I thought that was a rhetorical question to which you could impart some knowledge on.
It's one that I should have looked up earlier, but that you made me think about.
If we still had the chat room right underneath, I'm sure somebody smarter than us could have brought it.
Right. Yep.
All right. What about your low light for this game?
It's Chris Davis. The low light of the past month is Chris Davis. The 0 for 4 is not acceptable. Yeah, he got on base once at the end of the game with that shot, but that should have been called. It should have been another out, not an error.
That guy lost the ball in the mask.
Yeah, a little glare.
It's disappointing for Chris Davis just because he's trying so hard. He's an easy guy to root for. You really want him to succeed, especially because after the great season he had last year, and the mythos of Crush Davis was born. But gosh, he is just a black hole in the middle of the order right now. Obviously, Buck Showalter isn't going to drop him any further than fifth in the order because he likes his guys.
Right.
But there's starting to be some chatter now. What do we do about Chris Davis? The guys from the BSR podcast took this on in their episode, which came out today, and their conclusion was it's probably a good idea to send him to the DL for that quote unquote nagging oblique injury. What do you think about that, and what do you suggest they do with Chris Davis?
I suggest an eye doctor because he doesn't seem like he's swinging at the right pitches. I believe it was BSR that was also talking about how the pitchers are now just throwing first ball strikes on him. Might have even been you guys talking. His first pitch is strikes, and he watches that one, and then he swings at everything way outside because he knows he's not going to get anything else good.
Yeah.
And it's tough because as soon as when he makes contact, that ball flies, and all of a sudden we all get excited thinking Crush is back. And we haven't seen him really build on much.
Yeah, it's really been all or nothing, and it's especially frustrating because he seems to hit the ball hard, but directly into the shift. They were talking about that on the broadcast tonight, and then he did it. Is it a matter of the fact that he's unable to adjust to the shift? Is it that he's not going well enough that he can hit the other way? Or is it simply the pitch selection that he's getting? All he can really do with is pull it into the right field side of things.
I don't think it's fair to blame an adjustment because it's now been a year since the pitchers made the adjustment. We saw pitchers adjust this right after the All-Star game, and here we come. We're not too far from this year's game.
Sure. Well, I would agree that that's definitely a low light, and hopefully he can get himself together. Someone on the Twitters this evening, and I'm going to get this wrong, it was either Orioles Uncensored or it was Utah Street Report. Both were involved in the conversation. We're talking about maybe it's time to sit him for a couple of games, or maybe it's time to have him DH for a significant period of time so he can focus on his hitting. I think that Buck Showalter is not apt to have him DH since the only thing that he's not bringing is the stick, and to have that be the premier thing that he contributes to the game would be a net loss. Buck Showalter is a big believer of, well, at least he's contributing defensively, and Chris Davis is, I would say, a average to above average first baseman.
Yes, that was an O's Uncensored recommendation to DH him. And
gotcha.
Yeah, that seems anti. Right now, I'd rather him play first base and not bat if that's an option.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him getting a day or two off just to clear his head. Again, this is not a benching. This is not a punishment. It's not anything dramatic. Just, he's not doing anything good for the team, and it's not doing anything good for him to be there with the with the offers every night,
right,
just mounting the frustrations. And this is a low light that got even Camden upset. I can see very clearly.
You woke her up. I'm trying to pass her on.
All right. The other thing
what was your low light?
My low light was completely T.J. McFarland, in the fact that T.J. McFarland got pulled, in my opinion, too early. Maybe he was on a pitch count. Maybe it was 75 pitches. Maybe the plan all along was for him to go 5 innings and 5 innings only. But the thing about T.J. McFarland is that after he settled down, after giving up those early runs, he gave a pretty reasonable facsimile of being a major league pitcher. He was pretty effective, and he was going strong through those late innings. He was facing the minimum number of hitters and all that kind of good stuff. And then after having a nub of a hit and then a seeing eyeball to get a couple guys on base in the fifth, he didn't come back for the sixth, and Ryan Webb was already warming. So again, maybe it was all part of the plan, but I was a little disappointed not to see T.J. McFarland stretch a little farther because he's going to be unavailable to pitch a couple nights after this anyway, and it would be a shame to have used up all of our bullets in the bullpen on a blowout game that ended up being 8-3.
Yeah, I think it came down to one that was his longest outing of his career. So I don't know if he's ever, I guess, since maybe college or maybe some minor league ball. I don't know last time he was a starter.
Yeah, I'm sure he started some longer games in the minors.
Right. So I don't know how much. I know he hasn't thrown 75 pitches or whatever in a long time, So it could be some of that, some tightness, figuring out what he can handle, as well as our bullpen has had some rest, and
Hmm.
we've needed to get some guys in. Zach Britton hadn't pitched since Friday, so he showed up today.
Well, you got to close down the door with a 5-run lead.
Right, right.
All
Well,
right.
yeah, we had the new guy yesterday, so that
Right.
took some space as well.
That all happened right as we were getting ready to record our podcast, and I literally had no idea he was on the team.
Well, Buck didn't know either. We
Right.
heard Buck first met him walking out to the mound.
Right.
So
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the offense that we saw tonight. I mentioned the home run from Team Steve, but not just that. There were home runs all around. Um, Caleb Joseph got one, and Nelson Cruz on his birthday hit another one out. But I thought the interesting thing about the offense tonight was that it was not all home runs like we've seen in the past.
no. That fourth inning, you got the home run, but then you got some stuff building with the bases loaded, and we actually knocked some people in,
Yeah.
some normal RBIs and such.
And it was interesting because Nick Markakis had the opportunity with the bases loaded. He came through with a 2-run double, and then he had that same opportunity later on in the game, and we saw the result we're a little more used to, which is a strikeout to end the inning.
Right, right. But I'm not going to say anything bad about Nick Markakis. He's been playing great.
No,
Uh,
absolutely. I just mean situationally with runners in scoring position, the Orioles have
right.
struggled to manufacture runs.
Yes.
Also, from the offensive side of things, we had a weird eighth inning. We talked about the play where Davis should have been out, and then the center fielder also robbed J.J. Hardy of a
Yeah.
short double
Where
right
did
there
that
off the
speed
wall.
come from?
I know, it was just
He
a
went up
very
to,
strange thing.
yeah, it looked like an easy shot, and somehow he got extra speed. And then he hit that wall at full speed and didn't even flinch on making the turn.
Well, if you notice, he was pretty careful to keep his face away from the fence. He really cradled himself in there pretty
Yeah.
well.
I don't know why he has that mask. He should just use it.
All right. So that's our offensive notes. Do you have anything else from the offense?
Let me check my Scope. I've been giving Scope a horrible time. He did get 2 hits tonight, and I still think he needs to be sent down, but he did well tonight, so I
Yeah,
got to bring him up.
you and Scott Magnus both. Scott's been beating the drum that Jonathan Scope needs to spend some time in the minors so that he can brush up on his third base for next year.
I
I don't
totally
buy any
agree.
of that.
I
I don't
totally
buy
agree.
any of that. I think that Jonathan Scope is doing just fine defensively at second base, which is what keeps people here on Buck Showalter's team. And I think that there's no problem with a young player like Jonathan Scope learning at the major league level, especially because I don't believe that he's costing the Orioles games while doing it. And I think
No,
that will be a
I
lot
don't.
more.
Do you think he's an improvement over Flaherty, or same?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I think that they both bring a little bit of pop and a lot of frustration, but at the same time, I think that Flaherty is a lot more useful as a utility guy, as a super utility guy, in a way that that's just not in Jonathan Scope's toolbox.
True, I agree on that of Flaherty, but I would say send Scope down, groom him for third base because you're not going to re-sign JJ. You're going to shift Manny over.
Yeah, well, that may end up happening, but I'm fine with where they are right now because they seem to be focused on 2014, and I'd
No,
like it if they
that's
could.
what I want to do. Let's keep focusing on this year.
All right. Well, we mentioned Ryan Flaherty's defensive skills and his value there. Let's talk about the defense in total in this game. Flaherty did turn a couple of nice plays at third base, and it's a nice reminder that he is a real major league player.
Yeah, no, and it's that utility that you were saying that we can put him at second, at third. I'm sure we can even put him in the outfield. I can't remember
Yeah,
if
he
he's been
can
out
play the
there.
corner. Yeah, he can play the
I
corner.
know he can. I
The
know
one
he's
thing he
played
does
too much,
not
so.
the one thing he does not have is his own line of salsa, which is clearly the hole in his game.
Well, if maybe he can work out 5 days to go out and market it like Machado has.
All right, I like that. Another note that I had for the defense was that Elvis Andrus' error kept the inning alive that should have ended. That's the inning that we were talking about with
Right.
Markakis driving in those 2 runs. Maybe it's a different game if it ends up being 6-3 or something of that nature, where the Rangers can start to pull themselves back into the game. But it was a big one, especially because I know that I did a post-game show the last time we played the Rangers, and I'm not sure if it was you that was with me or somebody else, but I remember talking about Elvis Andrus making some defensive miscues and how big a deal that was, particularly because he's usually such a steadfast fielder. So maybe that's not so much the case.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch him enough. But you got to point out when talking defense that we pulled 3 double plays. And they were great turns by Scope and Flaherty. And, yeah, I thought Davis did fine at third base the other night, but I like him at first base. He's got that stretch and reach that the other guys just don't have.
Yeah, I think the only thing that third base alignment allows is to get Delman Young, Steve Pearce, and Chris Davis into the game at the same time.
Yes, it drove me crazy yesterday that Masson never mentioned that the whole point of that setup was to get Delman Young in the lineup.
Right. Well, the double plays did help. I mean, they call it the pitcher's best friend, but I think that's what kept this game to be at such a distance. The Rangers had their opportunities, but again, the defense came through at every opportunity. Last defensive note I wanted to make, and I'll turn it over to you in case I've missed anything, is talking about double plays. Tommy Hunter had to turn around and throw to second and almost threw it away again. Is that something that they practice with those pitchers? Because it seems like every one of them throws it away.
So I missed the play, but I'm guessing so a short ball to Hunter and he almost overthrew it.
Yeah. He went to throw to second and started a double play, and he almost threw it away.
You know what it is? It's the different throwing motion. When you're throwing down plate is different than when you got to turn to throw to first base.
I guess if you can't wind up for it, it's harder for him.
Matt and I play on a softball team together, and I pitched this past Sunday, and I had a weak grounder to me, and I threw it about 5 feet over the first baseman.
That's because you got to throw it underhand, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what Matt gave me a hard time, that it's because I threw it the wrong way.
All right.
I'm not going to get on to Tommy.
You have to do it like Darren O'Day, who takes pride in throwing like a girl.
Yeah. Hey, if that's what you got to do to pull back. Right. Right. Well, it would look awkward if he did his little bend at the waist to throw to first base.
Right. All right, well, let's talk about pitching.
One more defense thing.
Sorry.
I got a question for you. I think it might have been the 4th inning, 5th inning. You had a little shot right in front of Caleb Joseph, and we almost had a Caleb Joseph, TJ McFarland collision. How is there no communication there with who's going to grab that ball?
Well, I think it was on Caleb Joseph because he didn't see it until incredibly late, and because he didn't see it, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the catcher has the precedence there. I think it's his play to call.
He should. He's got the better angle.
Right.
It was a no play anyway, but
right. But instead of saying I need help or I can't see it, he settled for silence and continued looking, and that left T.J. McFarland kind of hanging out there to try to make a play or avoid a collision.
Right. Exactly. And I can just see us losing a pitcher that way.
Right. Because I got my money on Caleb Joseph in that collision.
Yeah, he's at least got the armor.
Absolutely right.
So, but let's talk about pitching, like you said.
All right. Well, I think we ground T.J. McFarland into the ground. Scott and I have this argument all the time. I like T.J. McFarland. I think he was a good pickup at the Rule 5. I think he brings value in the fact that he can occasionally give you a spot start, and sometimes he'll get knocked around, but he's turned himself into one of those crafty lefties, and I think that his stuff does play in the majors, especially when he works down in the zone. Because he doesn't have a ton of velocity, everything moves, and when he works down in the zone the way he did tonight, he can give hitters on both sides of the plate a real hard time.
Yeah, I agree, and I think Buck also. I think Buck has a love in his heart for Rule 5 draft picks because he wants to prove other teams wrong, and I like that. I think he loves the idea, just like he did with Flaherty, of taking another team's trash and making something of it.
Yeah. I think we can all agree, though, that he should really grow that mustache back because that's been lacking.
I don't know. I think he's pitching a little better this year, so I'm fine without it.
All right, on the other side, the Rangers threw Martinez at us, and we usually crumble in the face of pitchers that we've never heard of before, but he was the one that broke tonight. He really just kind of fell apart as the Orioles' offense did what we hoped that they would do to all opposing pitchers. The one thing that I noted from him, though, is that he kept throwing high and tight to batters on both sides of the plate, and I'm not sure if that was simply a lack of command and the fact that pitches were getting away from him, or if it was an intentional bit of strategy to keep our hitters off balance as they were getting settled in the batter's box.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm not sure. It might have been my wife was asked the same thing. Why does he keep throwing the ball at him? And it's I don't know. I know that was one. I know Davis struggles with that pitch, so that
Yeah,
could be one reason is to try to keep the ball kind of in the stadium for when
sure.
it's been carrying so well.
And it disrupts timing and it makes
Yep.
people uncomfortable and all that kind of other good stuff. Maybe it was strategy, but maybe he just had the yips. A note that I had was that I was not really impressed with Ryan Webb. He was not sharp. He gave up some meaningless runs, but it sure would have been nice to see him hang a zero.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's what 3 runs. He gave up 2 of them, right? No, he gave
I
up
think
one
I think
run.
he have the one. Yep.
He gave up 1 run. So I'm not gonna give him a hard time today. I'll save that for when he really blows it, like
Fair
a
enough.
Black Mattis performance.
Let's hope not. Please no. Lastly, the last thing I took note of was Darren O'Day, who I thought he looked great. I know he hit a guy, but he had really good movement, up in the zone, down in the zone, and tailing away from righties. I thought he looked really good tonight.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, he was our setup guy last year for part of the season, and I like him in that role. I think that bend at the waist approach throws batters off, and it quieted down their game a little bit.
And it was interesting to see the Orioles face that Submariner from the Rangers. I think it was last night.
Yeah, it was
Um,
last night.
to see them really get a taste of their own medicine. The Orioles don't have to face Darren O'Day, but they did that night.
Yep. Yeah, it was interesting.
All right. Well, did I miss anything from the pitching side of things?
Uh, no, I mean Britain came in first time since Friday and just closed things out. Did what Britain's been doing.
Yeah, just had to get some work in. But frankly, I'll take mop up duty to tune up rather than tight save
Yeah.
situations.
Hey, if we never get another save again because we're winning by this lead, I'm very happy.
That's right. We'll take the win rule over
Right.
the save rule, as
Yeah,
Buck
right.
Showalter used to say.
Exactly. Let's start looking at run differential.
Well, what does that say? What is your bottom line takeaway from this game?
Bottom line takeaway is the Orioles did something that they haven't done. Well, I guess they started doing it lately that they haven't been doing all year, which is they're scoring early, and they're taking charge of games early. This was the first and fourth, I think they got their runs,
Yep.
and
First, second,
considering
and fourth. Yeah.
right, and considering last week it was eighth and ninth inning runs, I much prefer these first half of the game taking charge.
Yeah, and that's something I hadn't thought about. It's actually a really good point because in addition to just scoring late in games, our pitching staff has also been giving up first inning runs a lot lately.
Right.
Maybe not so much in the last week, but it had been a troubling trend for a little while. So it's nice to see that coin put on the other side.
Yeah.
Um,
And
my,
I'm sure
my
it's got to be less stress on the pitcher
oh
when we
sure.
score early.
Sure. I mean, you stake a guy like T.J. McFarland to a 4-run lead or even a 4-2 lead early,
Right.
and that's going to allow him to stay in the game.
Yep.
My takeaway for this game was simply just to continue the winning ways that we saw in June. June is actually a pretty good month. The Orioles went 16-12. They won 5 series. I think they were 5-1-2 for series. It was disappointing to see them not make more ground on the Rays series, especially because that team, was the worst in baseball at the time, and there they were trying to get a split desperately on Sunday. If the Orioles can make a real series of it here with the Rangers, they'll be in good position to go through July. On the other side of the All-Star break.
Get ready for those 10 games.
Tougher schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for the game. Josh, I enjoyed the recap of Bert's story times on this week's Section 336 program. Do you guys know what you're doing for later on this week?
Yes, we're going to be talking about the Orioles. So Matt and Bert are down in the Outer Banks on vacation this week, and 2 of my kids are down there with them. So I am driving down on Thursday night after work, just in time to arrive in the Outer Banks about the same time as like that tropical storm that might be a hurricane. So we're going to have a little fun with that and record something Thursday night. And I'm sure we'll be talking to Orioles. We'll be talking this Rangers series, looking at Boston and the Nats next week.
And in the meantime, listeners can still find the daily shows. Is that correct?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, I don't remember what my daily was this morning, but it was pretty good. And tomorrow is the Zany Burt Roadie.
All right, great. I mentioned it earlier in the show. The BSR podcast came out on Tuesday. Make sure you check that out. Also, there's a program called Bird's Eye View that came out on Tuesday. Nothing really of note that you should listen for, but if you're bored on the way to work.
Right. Right. And you guys had a nice soccer performance. A nice 0-0.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing a really good job of that. I think we're gonna have more ties than I'll have victories for Fantasy Boss this season.
Hey, were we supposed to look ahead to tomorrow's game?
We can do that. What do you have for tomorrow's game?
Well, it's Tillman versus Mikolas, who's a rookie that they just brought up, that they're bringing up for his first game tomorrow.
Okay,
so
now again, that should not strike fear into our hearts, and yet it makes me very uncomfortable to know that we're going to be facing a guy who's making his major league debut.
Yeah, major league debut. So you might want to head out to the yard for that one.
Can we talk about that for a second before we close out? Has attendance been miserable, or is it just me?
The television made it look pretty bad today.
I think there were 20,000 in the stands, and I know it's a weeknight, but
20,000 is pretty good for a Tuesday
night.
But,
the kids are out of school. What are the excuses now?
World Cup soccer.
Yeah, everybody was really excited.
I believe that we can win. Yeah. Well, now people can forget about soccer. It's going to warm up. 4th of July is coming. What else is there but baseball? Well, and everyone, I don't know. I turned on 105.7 and they were talking Ravens, so I don't care.
I believe that I will get my Twitter timeline back now that it's over. And with that and that little bit of soccer haterade, we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks for joining us for the post-game live show on channel BSR. For Josh Schroka, I'm Jake English, and we will see you on Thursday.